Today, we're going to explore how to identify and deal with toxic emotions. Do any of you have not emotions, relationships in your lives? Are you dealing perhaps with toxic relationships, some of which you may be aware of, and sometimes we're not aware of them? We kind of push them to the side. We avoid dealing with toxic relationships. And so today we're going to dive in. If you're here, say hello. Good morning. Wonderful to see you. Thank you for joining me this morning. And so I just want to dive right in to our topic today. If you read last Thursday's newsletter, I asked you two questions last Thursday. The first question was, are you stuck in a toxic relationship? And the second question was, would you like to learn how to move beyond your habit of people pleasing and allowing others to take up your time, your energy, and your peace of mind? So in that second question, there has to be some sort of kind of admittance and acceptance that maybe you or me or any one of us might be people pleasers. And the reason that we are people pleasers, most of us have some degree of it, right? Some more than others, but most of us can have a little bit of a relationship with the people pleasing very simply because we want to be loved. We want to be liked. And so we get caught up in these intricate relationships of people pleasing that can become very toxic. So toxic relationships, people pleasing, and a lack of healthy personal boundaries are all intricately linked. And the first step in dealing with a toxic relationship is really recognizing its toxic nature. Now, you might ask, how do we recognize a toxic nature, the toxic nature of a relationship? First, my friends, I'm going to go back to what I'm always speaking about, which is embodiment, which is learning to trust your body, to tap into your body, and to notice how a certain person or people or an environment makes you feel. If you feel uncomfortable, if you feel anxious, unhappy, if you feel scared, confused, if you start to feel shaky, sometimes our bodies will start to shake, or if you have a sudden feeling of lightheadedness, some sort of disconnection, these are all signs that essentially you're off your center. You're being energetically mobilized, pulled out of your center. So really developing these intimate relationships with our bodies, learning to listen and to connect on a much deeper level is your first tool in identifying toxic relationships. So in other words, there's something that is not jiving energetically and your body is reacting to it. So to learn to really listen to if you feel nauseous, if you have a stomach ache, if you have butterflies in your tummy, all of these are signs that there might be something off in your environment. So this is why we spend so much time in these classes learning how to connect, how to listen to our bodies, because they are indeed the key to developing trust within ourselves, developing trust within ourselves. Now, the second tool to develop in learning how to recognize toxic relationships is your intuition, which is related to embodiment. So your intuition, you're going to feel that, especially in your gut, in your belly. So learning again to identify and to feel sensations in your body are tools, are highlights, are guideposts, signs that bring you into the present moment and to learn and recognize what's going on around you. So your intuition is super important. And then for some people, it's difficult to tap into their intuition. right? Maybe we have a hard time listening to our intuition. And why is that? That's because your critic voice, your voice of the critic, comes in and bullies you into doubt. So as soon as you have an intuitive feeling, a sensation in your body, that is the correct one. It's deep and it's subtle a lot of the time. But almost immediately at the same time as you have that body sensation, that intuition that makes you feel like, that's not right, something is off here. As soon as your intuition kicks in, and if you are not training yourself to listen to your body, what's going to happen is that your critic voice is going to bully its way to the forefront of your mind and make you doubt what you're feeling. Does that make sense? So here's what your critic voice can sound like when you are asking yourself, is there toxicity here? Am I in a toxic relationship? So you're feeling it in your body, but then the critic voice came in and is bullying you into doubt, and it'll say something like this. You'll ask yourself, right? Am I really being manipulated, or am I just overreacting? Yeah, I'm probably overreacting. Another way that the critic voice can come in is that it'll say to you, I'm sure that he, she, or they didn't mean what they said, right? You're downplaying it. And instead, what you'll do is you'll say something like, I should be more patient with them, right? So we tend to downplay our sensations by rationalizing, thinking that they didn't really mean it. I'm probably taking it too seriously, or I need to be more patient with them. Another way that your critic voice can come in is it'll say something like, they probably didn't mean to criticize me. I'm probably taking this too personally. Again, downplaying, minimizing what you initially felt as being off. And finally, another way that the critic will come in is it'll say something like, their jealousy and possessiveness, that's probably just a sign of love and affection. They really care for me that much that they're so possessive and jealous. I'm sure that they didn't mean to accuse me of cheating or point the finger at me. So again, there's that tendency to downplay your intuition, to really tap into how you are feeling. Learning to listen and trust your inner voice is the very first step to developing a more intimate relationship with your intuition. So I want to invite you to practice not doubting yourself when a sensation or feeling arises, to learn to really tap into your body and to trust what you are feeling, to listen more deeply and to tap into what is arising in that moment. This is a really amazing skill, and you get better and better at it the more you practice. So we've talked a lot about slowing down in our lives, right? Before you respond to a text or an email or a call, or before you say something as a reactive mechanism. A big part of the work that we're doing in embodiment is to develop a special tool, a listening tool to how we are feeling, what is arising within us. And in order for us to develop that skill, we need to slow down. We need to slow down, take a moment, take a beat, take a deep breath, and acknowledge how you are feeling and what is arising for you without allowing the critic to bully its voice into your head. Developing intuition is all about being in the present moment and becoming more attuned to our body's messages. So I hope that this is resonating and making sense. And if you have any comments or questions, I want to invite you to write them. Just chat with me. You can put them in the comments. If you maybe can relate to what I'm sharing with you, if it's making sense, or if you're someone that has a very highly developed intuitive self, how might you recognize toxicity in relationships? So now that we have these two tools, right? The tools of checking in with our body, listening to sensation, and the other one to develop our intuition, right? We have these two tools in recognizing toxicity. I want to go over some toxic behaviors to look out for because sometimes they are very subtle. One of which is manipulation. Manipulation looks like when your partner or someone in your life manipulates or controls you, making you feel like you're walking on eggshells or unable to make decisions without their approval. So, walking on eggshells or unable to make a decision without this person's approval, those are two manipulative tactics. They're red flags. Now, I want to say that people are not always aware of their manipulative tactics. This is why the practice of personal awareness, of tapping into sensation and listening to how we're feeling and our intuition is so important, because you can start to detect when someone is being manipulative or controlling over you. If you're not paying attention, you're going to misconstrue the manipulation for care. Sometimes when people are manipulating us, we're feeling like, oh, well, they must just care for me in this way. It's very subtle, but very dysfunctional at the same time. So pay attention to see in those relationships that if there's manipulation or control, that's a red flag for toxicity. Another one is lack of respect. And that's a really important one because respect is the foundation of healthy relationships. And if your partner or person in your life consistently disrespects your boundaries, your opinions, or invalidates your feelings, it's definitely a sign of toxicity. If you're feeling disrespected in any way, sometimes it's the tone of voice that someone will utilize to minimize us in some way, as if our opinions and our feelings don't matter. So notice if that happens for you. If you ever feel like someone is invalidating how you're feeling, they're minimizing you in any way. Tone of voice, it could also be energetic. You can be in a room with someone and someone, might turn their backs to you or might ignore you or avoid you. These might be signs of toxicity in that relationship. Another sign to look for is constant criticism. Do you feel like you are being criticized? Constructive criticism is normal in any relationship. Constructive criticism, right? We give each other feedback. That's positive. But criticism that undermines your self-esteem is not. So if someone is constantly telling you that you're out of shape, or that you don't dress well, or that you put on too much makeup, or that you are not affirming enough, or you're lazy. Any of these are personal criticisms. If your partner or whoever you're working with or your environment belittles or criticizes you, that is a definite warning sign to just be mindful of that. And you will feel that in your body, isn't it? When we're criticized or minimized, we feel it in our bodies. Another sign is gaslighting. Have you ever heard of the word gaslighting? And gaslighting, my friends, is a form of manipulation where your partner denies your reality. They make you question your sanity or your perception of events. Gaslighting is invalidating your feelings or experiences to gain power over you. So, this is a tricky one, right? Because it's not always easy to identify when someone is gaslighting us. But I will guarantee you that if you ever been gaslit in your life, you felt it in your body. There was a sense of disconnection, disharmony. You will feel bad. You will feel negative about yourself when you are being gaslit, because you are being completely invalidated in terms of your own reality. So what you say and how you see things don't matter. Your perception of what's happening is minimized or denied altogether. So this is a very subtle one. And again, I'm going to invite you to go back into sensation, because you will feel that in your body, to learn to develop that trust, that connection with your gut in reference to these toxic behaviors. Another one is lack of trust. Now, trust, as you know, clearly is essential for a healthy relationship. More than anything, trust in yourself, developing trust and compassion, a connection with yourself. So trust is a big deal in relationships, because you may have a partner who's jealous, possessive, or constantly accuses you of cheating or of being untruthful without evidence. So if that's happening in your life, that's definitely a lack of trust. And usually people who don't trust others do not have a relationship of trust with themselves. This is why we always go back to us. We go back to the center. We go back to our bodies. We take full responsibility for our lives. Being able to identify toxic relationships requires that you're fully present in your life, that you're paying attention to your own sensations. And if you're paying attention to your body sensations and you feel it in your gut, which is related to your intuition, if you are able to begin practicing listening deeply and pushing back the voice of the critic or the bully or the doubter that shows up in your head, you will be able to identify toxic relationships. And of course, once you can identify them, you can deal with them, you can change them. So, lastly, one of the behaviors for toxic relationships is emotional or physical abuse. So, any type of abuse, whether it's emotional, verbal, or physical, is a very clear indication of a toxic relationship. It manifests through insults, belittling, someone minimizing you, constant criticism, eroding your self-esteem, pulling your self-esteem out of you over a period of time. So when someone is consistently criticizing us about we're not doing the right thing, or we don't look the right way, or our tone of voice is not right, or we're too much. How many of you have heard that? You're too much, right? We take too much space. We're energetically too expressive. When people criticize us for the very way that we are in life, that is a toxic relationship. So I want you to take a moment right now to kind of explore that for yourself a little bit. And I have a comment here from Janet. Hi, Janet. Thanks for being here. Janet writes, I recognize toxicity as non-mutual attention. I focus on people and I can feel when someone else isn't responding in kind. That's interesting. As non-mutual attention, I focus on people and I can feel when someone else isn't responding in kind. That's really interesting. Yeah, that could be a sign of a toxic relationship, right? What I'm reading, Janet, if I'm reading this correctly, is that essentially nobody wants to invest energy in a relationship with someone who's not there, right? This is what I'm reading. If someone else is not responding in kind, is not exchanging with us, and if we choose to stay in that relationship, if we choose to continue being in that relationship, that can become toxic. And I love how you brought the non-mutual attention, right? If someone's not interested in you, if someone is not interested in being energetically present with you, that can probably develop into a toxic relationship if you decide to stay there. So this is a great example, Janet, thank you, of personal responsibility. How do we increase our level of personal responsibility? By paying attention in this way, as Janet says. Yeah, a one-sided relationship feels toxic. Isn't that the truth? A one-sided relationship feels toxic. I agree. And a lot of the time, when we find ourselves in one-sided relationships, we have to go back to ourselves and take responsibility. Why would we be in a one-sided relationship, especially if we're the one involved, right? If we're the one who's like in the relationship, staying in the relationship, when there's no feedback, no support from the other person. So thank you for bringing that up, Janet. That's really helpful. And I totally agree with you. So, okay, my friends, now that we've established a few behaviors, we have our tools of embodiment, checking in with the body and learning to develop our intuition, and then recognizing toxic behaviors such as manipulation and control, lack of respect, criticism, gaslighting, lack of trust. Okay, so what can we do about it? So the first step, much like you were just sharing, Janet, the first step is really to develop a sense of personal awareness. We've talked about this many times. Mindfulness, becoming more mindful, slowing down, and developing insight, developing your vision of insight through your energetic tentacles. You will feel it when someone is a little bit off, if they're being toxic, whether in their language, in their tone, in their body language, if they're being dismissive, you will feel it in your body, right? So being mindful of this, slowing down so that you can actually realize what's going on, and then developing insight. That's the key piece here, to begin to develop a sense of inner insight. These are a few ways to observe and to begin to understand the dynamics of the relationship. Because by cultivating awareness, you're going to be able to discern harmful patterns. As you cultivate awareness, personal awareness, as you slow down and you develop this vision of insight, you're going to be able to be more discerning, which means it'll be a red flag when you see harmful patterns or when someone disconnects, right? You'll be able to identify the sensation of negative emotions in your body and the impact that you will feel based on the absence of the other or of the toxicity of the other. You're going to feel that impact overall, right, on your well-being. So the key here is to be mindful that for a lot of people, they don't even recognize that they're in a toxic relationship until it's almost too late. So to begin to refine our attunement to body sensation, to intuition. If you're feeling something, my friends, it's valid. If you're feeling something, it's valid. It is worth the exploration. It is worth the exploration, because if you are not being present to yourself in these exchanges, if you're not paying attention in these exchanges, it's so easy to get caught up in self-criticism about how we are being in relationship. So attunement, becoming more discerning. So here's the thing. If you're suspecting that you are in a toxic relationship, right? Or that you know that you are, you might suspect, or you know that you are, and you don't quite know what to do about it. You don't know what to do. I just want to share 3 very simple steps with you. Step number 1. As the title of this talk is this week, we're going to learn to identify that your feelings are alive and valid. First step is to identify it. You're going to feel it in your body. if you're feeling threatened, uncomfortable, pushed around, if you feel like someone is being imposing upon you, take a step back. Here's the action. Take a step back and acknowledge that what you're feeling is valid. Your sensations, your body awareness is valid. Something is communicating something to you. It's super important that you validate your own sensations to become in a deep, intimate relationship with yourself and how you feel. That's number one. Number two, once you have validated your sensations and emotions, I want to invite you to create a little bit of space, some distance between yourself and the toxic person or toxic situation. Remember that you never have to stay in a space where there is toxicity. Very simply, you can just leave. You can walk away from toxic environments. And this is a practice that you take control of yourself in the moment and just remove yourself from a toxic conversation or environment. And this will assist you in developing more trust. You're developing more trust in yourself, your body sensations, and as you practice creating space between yourself and the person or situation, it gives you a moment to reflect, to slow down, and to identify, step number one, that your emotions and feelings are valid. You see how those work together. So first we identify, then we create a little bit of space, distance, so that you can really take a moment to establish what's really going on here. Your emotions, what you feel, is extremely valid. Don't ignore it, right? That's how we will begin to identify and become more discerning, more in tune with how we are feeling, with our intuition. And thirdly, as I kind of mentioned already, you want to give yourself some time to reflect upon what you're feeling. Don't try to figure it all out because it can be confusing. When we're in toxic relationships, it's hard to figure out what's going on. We're not sure if they're being manipulative. Are we out of line? Are they being controlling? Am I overreacting? Take some time here to reflect upon how you're feeling. Don't try to figure it out all at once, but rather come back to the present moment and please practice validating your own experience. This is the part of developing trust about how you feel in relationship to something, to someone. Some forms of manipulation and control are very, very subtle, and it's difficult to identify them, especially when we think that the other person has our best interest at heart. Especially in your more intimate relationships, because toxic relationships, will usually develop once we start to get in relationship with someone, whether it's at work. It doesn't have to be an intimate romantic relationship. It can be at work. It could be with a work partner, a business partner. It could even be with a friend. It could be with a neighbor. It could even be with your child, right? So learning to develop these tools of discernment will assist you in becoming clear, having mental acuity around what you're feeling. Mind, body, mind integration. Because if you're finding yourself in toxic relationships, my friend, it will affect your health. It will affect your organs, right? It will affect your stomach, the butterflies, right, in your gut. It can affect your digestion. This is a very real situation because any type of toxicity in relationships has a direct correlation to our physical health. This works hand in hand, like everything else. Your emotions are your biggest guides to helping you identify what is occurring in that exchange. So again, the 3 steps to get ourselves back to center. You want to begin by identifying what you're feeling. If you're feeling off, if there's someone in your life that you are presently having a toxic relationship with, or you're suspecting that there's some foul play, but you can't quite put your finger on it, start by identifying what you're feeling. If you're feeling queasy, uneasy, like you're calling someone a friend, but you don't really enjoy being around them, we have to take responsibility as well if we are part of that relationship, right? So identify your feelings, validate that they are true and important. And then once you've validated them, you want to create a little bit of distance between you and the person or situation. Just take a step back. And thirdly, give yourself some time to reflect upon the situation. Don't go into a reactive mode right away. Learning to discern and identify our emotions and what we're feeling takes a little bit of practice. So I want to invite you to explore that this week. So I'm leaving you with these very simple tools that I hope can be helpful. And next week, what we will focus on we'll go a little bit deeper into creating healthy boundaries in those toxic relationships. So today was specifically identifying, how do we identify them, right? Embodiment, feeling in your body, developing more attunement with your intuition, noticing what those toxic behaviors are: manipulation and control, lack of trust, criticism, gaslighting, and then learning how to respond to the toxic behaviors through identifying what you're feeling, validating it, taking a step back so that you can reflect upon what you're feeling. And then when you have a better sense of what you're experiencing, we will go next week into action mode of how to create healthy boundaries in your toxic relationships. Well, I hope that this was helpful. Thank you for being here today. As always, if you know anyone who might be interested in these topics, mind, body, mind alignment, please invite them to subscribe to my YouTube channel right here. They can also make an appointment on via my website. If you know someone who's going through a rough time and they need support, I offer 30-minute complimentary consultations for anybody who doesn't know me but would like some support in their life. That is an introduction to how they might work with me. And they can also go to my website, artofalignmentacademy.com, and look at the offers that I have, both if you're in New York City to see me in person in my office for structural integration alignment work, or for some people, it's more of a healing session. I also offer healing sessions to process emotion and trauma via the body. And I also offer that possibility via Zoom. So I am accepting new clients this month. So if you know anyone who might be interested in deepening their education, in deepening their own journey into personal awareness, into feeling more aligned in their mind, body, and spirit, please send them my way. I'd love to speak to them. And I thank you for being with me today. I look forward to seeing you next week. Any comments, any questions, please leave them on the YouTube comments section. And I look forward to seeing you next week, everyone. Bye for now. Take care.